After winning the Big Ten and making the national championship game, Purdue is going to look a lot different without two-time National Player of the Year Zach Edey. I'm going to go through some film and some concepts on both the offensive and defensive side of what Purdue might look like this season. So when we talk about Purdue, we have to talk about post-ups. No team posted up more in the entire country last season than Purdue. Purdue is still in the 92nd percentile of efficiency, but they only return about 20% of their post-ups, mainly coming from Trey Kaufman-Renn, and TKR was in the 51st percentile of efficiency. This play right here is going to be a good example of kind of looks that they got TKR in the post. This is going to be him right here. And so he's just going to eventually just kind of duck in and try to get positioning on this left block where he wants to get a lot of work. And so now once he catches it here, he can either face up or kind of just try to back his man down. He does a good job here, just kind of showing patience, allowing that double team to move away. And then it's just going to be kind of power stepping through, getting to that right hook that he wants to. So then on this play right here, I'm going to look at another example of a TKR post-up right here. This is where, again, kind of similar concept where they're just trying to get TKR to kind of duck in and create space. Wisconsin does a good job of defending it. Eventually, though, still is going to get into him. And now with him being pushed out further, right? He's probably at the 13 to 15 foot mark. He's going to face up, which he is comfortable doing. Now, he isn't going to be like a face-up jumper type guy, but he can use this to get to good footwork, and that's what he's going to try to do right here. You notice good spacing with TKR at the 5, something that I think we could see a lot of really like this exact lineup except for Camden Heide instead of Mason Gillis. And so now he's just going to go at Tyler Wall and then eventually get to that spin move that he does right there, which he loves to do. Now, one other thing I want to mention is last season, what Purdue did a lot of was trying to get Zach Edey kind of in the middle of the paint on seals. Now, TKR, less than 10% of his post-ups came in the middle. I'm interested to see if they kind of go to that with TKR, if they try to revamp their offense a bit. This play right here, horns high-low, something that Purdue ran so much last season, where you have two bigs kind of setting screens at the top of the key and then two shooters in the corners. And all that's going to happen is the big man, in this case Edey, could be TKR next year, is just going to dive to the rim while the other screener is going to pop out. And then it's going to be immediate high-low action. Notice Edey has his guy sealed down low. And then from there, can just go to work and get the post up. If you are enjoying, please like and subscribe and comment where you think Purdue ends up this season. Now, as we move away from the post-ups, the other emergence last season was Braden Smith, the only returning player from the first team All Big Ten, and he's going to be one of, if not the best player in the entire conference this season, and he's going to have to be for Purdue. So the big thing with him is going to be pick and rolls and what he's able to do with that. So I think Purdue got pretty creative last year in some ways of getting him looks, whether it be double screens or kind of just even plays like this, where he catches more off ball and then is able to go. The big thing with him is going to be aggression. Last year, he was one of the best passers in the country, and that's going to happen again. But he's also going to have to hunt his own shot more, especially with Edey gone. This is a play where he does that. So as Edey's going to set up to screen, notice Braden Smith's kind of hesitating, and you notice Crowell right here is going to be in this drop coverage. And so that means he's just going to have this mid-range area wide open to get to his pull-up, which he did really well at last season. Now, another area Braden Smith really excelled at was facilitating out of pick and roll, where he was just able to pretty much dissect defenses however way he wanted. Now, oftentimes this was because of Zach Edey and his roll gravity, but Braden Smith is obviously much more than just that. And this is going to be a play of that right here. And so this time TKR is going to be the one setting the screen. Again, Illinois, this time is going to be in drop coverage, just like in the last play. Now, the thing with that may be a little bit different this season is TKR, I think, could be used more as like a short roller. So this is where Edey is going to try to roll generally all the way to like the rim or like within 5 feet. Braden Smith can kind of throw this pocket pass to TKR where he catches it closer to 15 to 10 feet out. And so now from here, he could either kick it out, he could try to drive to the rim, or what he does here is just goes up with the floater. So I think kind of using him as a short roller will be more this season. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about Braden Smith and TKR, rightfully so. They are going to be probably the two most important players for Purdue this season, but Purdue's going to need more than that. They're going to need a legit third shot creator to kind of step up, and they need the three-point shooting to hold. Last year, they were the 6th best jump shooting team in the country. They returned 54% of their makes from 3 and 52% of their attempts, and the returning players averaged 43% from 3 last season, but they're going to need a secondary guy to go self-create. So this play right here is going to be another high pick and roll. And what they can do well out of this, so this is a hedge from Michigan, which Braden Smith excels at beating now. He's going to drag this big out knowing that Edey's going to roll and take this guy with him, Fletcher Lawyer knows that, so he's just going to rotate over to the top, and now he gets a wide open look from 3 that he's able to knock down. And that's going to happen a lot, kind of those kickouts from pick and rolls, and that's going to be a large source of three-point shooting for Purdue. But when defenses start to overplay it, what does Purdue have to go to counter to? It can't always be Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn. There's going to be other guys that need to step up. One of them being Fletcher Lawyer, and this is a play that Purdue loves to run. This is called Chicago action, so it's going to be a pin down into a handoff, and that's what Lawyer's going to get right here and be able to go. Now, Lawyer's the one that used it in this play, but it could be even Miles Colvin. It could be incoming freshmen Jakari Harris and CJ Cox. It could be potentially even Camden Heide or Brian Waddell. There are a lot of guys that I think could be running off of this, and they're going to have to self-create. It starts with Lawyer and Colvin, but I think there's a deeper part of this bench that could help. Also, I do have a film breakdown on all 5 incoming Purdue freshmen linked in the description if you want to go check that out after this video. But on here, the pin down into the handoff, and so now Lawyer's going to be able to get downhill. Another kind of interesting thing that defenses will do, last year they had to stay with Edey. This year they may not have to, and will have to come over and help on the drive a bit more. Another thing that I'm going to be monitoring, because a lot of this is going to be, what is Purdue going to run? Are they going to have TKR at the 5 and put out a more athletic lineup? Are they going to play more traditional with a couple shot blockers, which we'll talk about in a minute? But with that, does Purdue run more? They don't have to have Zach Edey set up every time, and so they were 83rd in percentile in efficiency last season in transition, but they were in the bottom 10% in the amount of possessions that came in transition. So one thing that's great about Braden Smith is even at 6 foot tall, he can just grab and go. Here, he's going to get this rebound, and now it's going to be off to the races. And so he does a great job of just really pushing the ball up. He is going to be more aware of where everybody else is on the court than anybody else. And so now he knows, okay, as soon as this guy steps up defensively, there's nobody here to protect the rim. I'm going to throw it to Lawyer. He also knows, like, if he wanted to try to get this defender over, he'd have Cam Heide running. But I'm interested to see what the transition game looks like. As we transition to the defensive side of the ball, I do just want to throw out there that I have a full podcast out breaking down just kind of the Purdue season as a whole, what lineups we may see, what they just might look like in general. So that will also be linked in the description. But defensive side of the ball, Purdue was top 10 in country in opponent mid-range field goal attempt percentage. So basically, they forced teams to take a ton of mid-range shots, and that's highlighted by the drop coverage used from Purdue. They were also top 20 in pick and roll defensive usage, so they defended the pick and roll a lot, and they were in the 76th percentile defended pick and roll. A lot of it comes from this man right here, though, Zach Edey. And so when I talk about drop coverage, this is what I'm talking about. Right here, this is Zach Edey in drop coverage. He's just going to be kind of scooting back. His entire goal in drop coverage against the screen is to keep the ball handler and the roller both in front of him. If he does that, it's the guard's job to get back into the play. And that's what happens here. And so now as he's in this drop coverage, okay, they're going to live with this pull-up. They're going to live with a pull-up like this instead of somebody trying to take a shot at the rim or take a 3. And that's exactly what happens here. Now with Edey gone, what kind of defensive coverages will Purdue run? Now there's guys like 7-footers Will Berg and Daniel Jacobson. They are going to be in that drop coverage just like Zach Edey was pretty much 100% of the time. But then there's guys like Caleb First, Trey Kaufman-Renn, and Riley Burgess who could be in either drop or potentially hedge. We'll talk about the hedge coverage a little bit later in the video, but here we'll show that the drop coverage once again, this time from Caleb First. You're going to see TKR is going to be kind of peeled in a little bit, helping give protection at the rim, which is going to be something that is important. But again, this drop coverage, keep the roller and the ball handler in front, allow the mid-range shot, that's what they'll live with. Pretty much correlated with the mid-range shot is the rim protection. Now teams were taking a ton of the mid-range shots, but not a ton of shots in the paint at the rim especially. But when Zach Edey was off the floor, Purdue was in the bottom 2 percentile in terms of defensive rim efficiency, aka team scored well at the rim when Edey was off the floor. This first play will look at kind of Edey's rim protection and what he's able to provide. And we already mentioned like the pick and roll coverage and what he's able to do there. He also was just able to zone up a lot at the rim. And so now here, as kind of Cam Heide gets beat on the perimeter here by Damask, Edey's just going to be able to cover up everything. And so now Damask is going to go up, Edey's not going to allow it, and he just covered so many mistakes on the perimeter. And so then on this play, we'll look at what it's like without Zach Edey on the floor last season. Like I said, one of the worst in the entire country when Edey was off the floor. However, that is kind of a smaller sample size, and there is definitely room for improvement, especially guys like Will Berg and Daniel Jacobson, if they're able to find a consistent role, would provide that rim protection if that's something Purdue wants. They may just value the offensive side more and allow TKR to be at the 5. So here, pick and roll, TKR is going to be in that drop coverage, nothing really happening. And so as the ball gets swung and there's an attack, you're going to see right here, 3 guys now are going to be kind of helping protect the rim. Now, Lance Jones on the weak side, he's going to be in charge of kind of these 2 defenders. Braden Smith is in charge of these 2. And now there's just a lot of guys here to help protect at the rim, and that may be what it is more of this season, of done by committee. Now, something I think we could see more from Purdue this season is more of a hedge coverage, especially TKR, Caleb First, and Riley Burgess. When they are in, and it is 2 of those 3 or 1 of those 3 in, I think that this kind of hedge coverage is something we see more from Purdue. And so right here, what this means is instead of right before in drop coverage, he's dropping back, TKR's job here in hedge is just to force the ball handler to retreat. And that's exactly what he does here. Forces the ball handler to retreat. Okay, now he's going to get back to his man. Defense is still going to be in a good spot and able to work from there. So I think just plays like that are going to be something we could see more. And the other thing I'm interested about on the defensive side is what the perimeter pressure looks like, especially if they do run not a true rim protector. They're going to be more pressure on the perimeter guards and wings to be able to apply pressure, to be able to really hold up defensively. Now, guys like Camden Heide, even Miles Colvin showed flashes. I thought Braden Smith showed some flashes towards the end of the season. And incoming freshmen CJ Cox, Sha'Carri Harris, they've all shown that they can be really good on the defensive end. It's going to be interesting to see with the turnovers, though. Last year, Purdue was 343rd in forced turnovers. They haven't been above 295th in the country in the past 4 seasons, but with Zach Edey not being able to be at the rim and just helping protect everything, does Purdue opt for a more physical and just kind of aggressive style, try to force more transition buckets that way too? Now, Braden Smith's probably the best in terms of forcing turnovers, returning to the team. Right here, he just has really quick hands getting through the screen, and I think plays like this are going to be potentially more common for Purdue this season. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and click here for more Purdue preseason content.